You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Sunday, October 1st. The 49ers are 4-0 after holding up in a divisional battle against the Arizona Cardinals. Joining me to discuss the win today is Ty Alston. You may have seen him in his podcast. What do you do that, like weekly, Ty? Bi-weekly?
Yeah. It's a weekly, bi-weekly. It depends on my schedule.
All right. East Coast
Red and Gold. It's weekly. We
Red
go
and
live
Gold
Wednesday
podcast.
every night. Yep.
There we go. But man, this was a great game. And as we mentioned, the 49ers go up 4-0, and they did it in impressive fashion. Once again, going over 30 points. I would say the 49ers started hot on offense, and they pretty much stayed hot throughout the game. Brock Purdy was perfect in the first half, included a awesome 42-yard completion to Brandon Aiyuk, who made an incredible grab. And Purdy was 13 of 13 at one point before he threw his first incompletion in the third quarter of the game. He did finish 20 of 21, 283 yards and a touchdown through the air to Christian McCaffrey, another quarterback sneak in the fourth quarter. That sealed the game. And his 95.2 completion rate is, I guess, a new record for the 49ers in a single game. The last 49er who did that was Steve Young in 1991. So Brock Purdy continues to put himself in great company as far as the accomplishments he's making. And Ty, if you want to say anything about Brock, I'm gonna give you a moment here, because at this point, as good as he was, I think like after this, we have to talk about Christian McCaffrey. So what do you want to say about Brock Purdy in this one?
He's Brock steady. We know what we're going to get week in, week out, right? He's just even kill. We know he can execute this offense. He can make the right reads, put it out there. And the great thing that we're seeing in his development is that he's recognizing the one-on-one matchups. And he's saying, my guy is better than your guy. And he's putting it up there for him to make plays. And they are rewarding him. And that's something we've been wanting to see in this offense for a long time. So as Brock continues to elevate his game, this offense is going to just get better and better.
Well, when his guys are Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Aiyuk, and we can name all the guys, right?
It helps. It helps.
It definitely does help. But I think before we do move on to Christian McCaffrey, I do want to point out that once again, I think we're seeing the trust that Kyle Shanahan has in Brock Purdy. Early in the game, they went for it on fourth down, and not only did they go for it, but it was a pass play, right? That converted to George Kittle, right? So I think, we're seeing this offense operate at a different level than we've ever seen it, just because one, Brock Purdy has kind of raised the ceiling of this offense with just the little things that he does right and does better, but also because Kyle Shanahan trusts him to execute this offense at that level. And we're not seeing Brock Purdy really slow down. We've seen him play a bunch of different defenses at this point. The Arizona Cardinals, another team that, he did play last year. There's plenty of tape on Brock Purdy at this point, and yet, I haven't seen a team really slow him down. The closest I think we got was last week against, the Giants in that game, or at this point, 10 days ago. That was probably the closest, and look what he did to the Giants, right? So I think this is a great sign, great development for the future of this offense going forward. I don't really see a team stopping this. The 49ers do have a tough test, next week against the Cowboys defense. That'll tell us a lot. But, so far, things are moving, and they're moving well.
Yeah, it's just a testament to the offense overall. I think his involvement to go along with a very good offensive line, very good receivers, tight end, and, of course, the best running back in football.
let's get to the best running back in
I
football,
tossed it up
shall
there
we?
for
Because
you. Yes,
that is
indeed.
thank you for the alley-oop there. Christian McCaffrey is the story of this game. He had 2 touchdowns in the first half alone. He finished with 4 touchdowns on the day, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown through the air. And that, I've been talking about it earlier this week that he had the chance to make history with 2 different franchise records, and he completed both of them pretty early in this game. I would say 100 plus scrimmage yards and a touchdown in 4 straight games to start the season. That overtook Jerry Rice for that franchise record. And he now has also gone 13 straight games with at least 1 touchdown, and that's another franchise record. But it's worth mentioning, there have only been a handful of players in NFL history who have been able to do that. And of course, like the all-time record is 17 straight games with a touchdown. So still a ways to go for that. But this is impressive. This is like MVP worthy, play what Christian McCaffrey has been doing through these first 4 games and today.
Yeah. At this point, I know it's very early in the season to speak about MVP, but if his name isn't in the discussion, it's criminal if it's not, because he's doing everything that you could want a football player to do on the field. And at some point we might even see him throw, right? We saw that last year. So he's just on another level right now. And you can easily say he's the best offensive player in football, hands down.
Yeah, and that's why he deserves to be in those MVP conversations, right? And, we started to see it last year when, the team, as soon as he was traded to the team, it changed the trajectory, I think, of this team altogether. And they have not looked back ever since. And as Technic Sheik mentioned here, the 49ers were 5-5 in the red zone. I think that's another great development of the day, because we saw them leave points on the field, in the first 3 games of the season, despite them, scoring 30 points in all of those games. There was still room for improvement. That was one area, and 5 for 5 in the red zone. I would say they did fix those woes. Another thing for me that I was looking for them to improve were penalties. And, in previous games, they were averaging little over 6 penalties a game or something like that. Today, just 4 for 21 yards. So I really like that. And if you look at Arizona Cardinals, they had 9 penalties for 55 yards. You look at the difference there. That definitely helped, the 49ers, stay alive in this one for the entirety of the game.
Real quick, one thing that tickled me during the beginning of the game, like up until the second quarter, every time Dre Greenlaw made a hit, you would see him stand up and do this and look at the refs like it was clean, no flag, right? Like Dre's like, I'm just playing football. And let's be honest, a lot of flags he has drawn have been ticky-tack. They have been late. Like, come on, ref. That was a clean football hit. Today we saw no flags for him. Off of very clean hits. He played a good game.
Yes, he did.
Which I believe helped contribute to, the lack of penalties. And the team overall was very disciplined. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot penalty-wise, which helped us a lot. And this is the type of performance I want to see going forward. Good, clean football.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad that it seemed like they definitely addressed it this week as far as like the penalties go, but also obviously for Greenlaw, a point of emphasis since he was getting those calls. Now he knows, right? Like the refs are looking for me, and there's no excuse for him, I guess, to make those mistakes like that. Even though a lot of those, were ticky-tacky, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like with Joshua Dobbs and his ability to run and escape, and he doesn't always slide. To me, going into it, I was a little worried because I was like, ooh, that could be a recipe for Greenlaw or someone else to get called for a flag, and we did not see that in that game. Now, credit to Joshua Dobbs though, because he did play a great game. He looked incredible, I thought, for the Arizona Cardinals in this one. He finished 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think the biggest key for the defense is that they stopped the run starting with James Conner. That was
Yeah,
a huge part
yeah.
of what they needed to do in order to win this game. They limited Conner to just 11 carries, 52 yards, so not very efficient on the ground. And I think that
Hmm.
just helped everything else fall into place, even with Dobbs, putting together a pretty good game.
Exactly. And you saw Arizona early on. They tried
Yeah.
to test us early up the middle.
They were
They wanted to
aggressive.
get that. They were very aggressive. They wanted to get that run game going, try to wear down our defense, pound that rock in there. And we weren't budging. They
Yeah.
weren't going anywhere. I mean, kudos to the D line, the combinations of Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Oren Burks. I got to mention his name because he was coming downhill and making some tackles for stops, 1-2 yard gains. That's it. And that helped set the tone early so that they stopped. And if you notice, they started, okay, let's start going toward the outside now because up the middle is not working. And that
Exactly.
helped us. That just played right into our hands.
It does, because these linebackers could go sideline to sideline, and we saw
Yep.
that today. Like, they're
Yep.
so fast and quick to the ball. Hufunga as well, Gibson, like all
Exactly.
those guys. And, the 49ers defense did allow a couple of explosive plays to the
They did.
Cardinals today. But at the end of the day, this team has a way of always keeping the game in control, and
Exactly.
I think that's what they did. I think the only time where it felt like it was starting to get out of control was that drive. I believe it was before halftime, and it was. Wait, I'm trying to find it. I think it was before
The,
halftime. Ambry
the
Thomas was.
92-yard drive. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy because great
Yeah.
special teams play by Mitch Wishnowsky. Pinning them
Yep.
back, and also who is that guy? They just signed him.
They just called him
Uh,
up. I can't even remember his name. Oh
Yeah, I'm
my
trying to get
gosh.
I'm trying to find it in my notes right now, but
Yeah.
he was just signed this week, and he made an incredible play to pin them. Sheffield, yeah.
Sheffield. Thank
They
you.
pinned them down at their own one.
Mhm.
And again, credit to the Cardinals, cuz they took the length of the field pretty much,
Yeah.
and they scored. And really, like, I think a lot of it had to do with Ambry Thomas being in there. I wasn't a big
Yes.
fan of that. I'm still not a
Yes.
big fan of it. I don't want to see that ever again.
No.
Because, like, I don't know if it was that, like, Isaiah Oliver wasn't looking good in like the start of the game, but I didn't see Isaiah Oliver really, like, I didn't hear his name mentioned, so for
Mm-mm.
Ambry Thomas to be out there, I think was a little inexcusable, because Lenore wasn't hurt. They had
Right.
Lenore in the slot. So
They
I don't
kicked
know.
him
I don't know
inside.
why they
Yeah.
keep it. That experiment needs to be done with. And I
It,
hope that was the last of it that we saw.
I agree. And we saw this exact same thing week 1 in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
where they had Ambry over there. They kicked Lenore inside. And you remember Pittsburgh just went that way toward Ambry's side all the way up the field. They managed to get a big run in there. But other than that, every throw was to Ambry's side of the field. It was like whoever he was guarding, that's where they went. And hats off to Arizona. They identified that today and said, "Oh, he's out there. Let's go." And that
Exactly.
that double
They
move
picked
he
on
bid
him.
on, and
Mhm.
yeah, and then ran an underneath route, and he jumped on it, left the guy open, behind him. That experiment definitely needs to end. Leave
Yeah.
Lenore out there, bring in Oliver in the slot. That unit is the most solid unit for us,
Yeah.
and we got to
Absolutely.
stick with it.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Quick
Mike.
shout out to my cousin Monica. She's watching from Brazil on vacation. Shout out her. Shout out to my dad as well. It is his birthday today. He and my siblings were at the game today, so
Oh,
shout out
nice.
to them. It was a great game for them to experience. My dad's first NFL game, I think. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, this was a great one for him to attend. But yeah,
Happy
I mean,
birthday.
yeah, but on the defense, like, I think the most pivotal drive for them happened in the fourth quarter. And apologies, because actually that play where Ambry Thomas was in there and they scored that 99-yard drive, that happened in the third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, I thought it was a very pivotal drive for them, in which Dobbs was using his legs a bit, moving the ball. Greenlaw, though, makes a huge stop on a
Yes.
Dobbs keeper. And
Yep.
Hufanga was also there helping
Yep.
to limit that to a no gain.
Yep.
Dobbs then threw up a wobbler that was nearly intercepted by Mooney Ward.
Yes.
I'm sure Ward would have liked to have that one, but
Yeah.
it's okay. You live for another play, and that
Right.
play on third down was Javon Hargrave getting the sack on Dobbs. And not only does it end their drive, but it takes them out of field goal range. That drive was huge. And to me, that was the defining play for the defense. And so, yes, there was a lot of bending, but, as we've been saying all season, they bend and they don't break. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from this defense. Maybe, we're starting to see the offense carry this team a little bit more than we have in the past, but that's okay. As long as the defense is not breaking, we can live with that. We can work with that.
Exactly. And it's complementary football. We want to see the offense do their thing as well as the defense. So far, that's helping us win games. Let's keep that going. But that drive where we stopped them, we needed to stop them, get them off the field, take back control of this thing, and leave no doubt. And that stop by Dre and Hufanga was huge because it kept them into a long situation, a third and long situation, where we now, because up until that point, they were gaining yards and keeping it to, third and manageable. Making it 3rd and 10 was a whole different ball game. Now we know we got to put it on Dos Jobs' shoulders.
Yep.
And that lets the D-line do their thing. And I saw it's becoming a trend where teams are choosing to double team Armstead and single up Hargrave. Yeah, they're choosing to double team them, but leave Hargrave singled up one-on-one. And he's making them pay. And you know what? That's the D-line we have. It's a pick your poison D-line. If you want to double team this guy or double team that guy, okay, we got other guys who can hurt you. And that's the beauty of this defense.
Yep, exactly. And I think, obviously this was another game where we didn't see the 49ers get home as much as we would have liked, right? I mentioned the sack from Javon Hargrave, and I did mention that did come at a pivotal time. Hargrave had a great game, by the way. He had 4 tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. But, I think we saw the defensive line get real close a bunch of times. And again, so credit to Dobbs because he was getting the ball out quickly. We've seen the offenses that the 49ers have gone up against, make that a point of emphasis. Okay, get the ball out quickly so we don't have to take these sacks. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but next week the 49ers play, the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, right? I don't see him as the same kind of guy who has the poise to stay in the pocket and, hit an open man.
Exactly.
I think the 49ers are going to get their sacks next week a little bit easier, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not talk about that game quite yet.
Right.
But, I think for all the talk of Nick Bosa's not getting any sacks, he's not showing up on the stat sheet. That's baloney because he's still impacted the game. He got close so many times. Dobbs had to get the ball out. So that's just what I'm saying. I think it was still a great performance by the defense. You want to get those sacks to fall, of course, but you're going to live with what you can. And I think the 49ers defense did a good job.
Exactly. And let's not forget the fact that pressure counts. Getting there, making the quarterback uncomfortable, making him throw the ball before he might want to.
Exactly.
All that stuff helps the defense. So pressure counts. Those guys being in his face and making him uncomfortable counts. And just because you don't see a sack doesn't mean they aren't being effective. Because if you look at some of those throws we threw early and guys were able to tip it and break up passes and do things, that's because of the pressure. So the front line is doing their job, and I have no qualms with them whatsoever.
Yeah, me either. Let's get back to one guy on the offense that I do really want to talk about as well. His name is Brandon Aiyuk. On a day where Jawan Jennings was out and Deebo Samuel was, basically a decoy today. Brandon Aiyuk cooked. He cooked. And he did it on just 6 catches. He caught all 6 of his targets today, but he had 148 yards. And I think the thing for me was like it was chunk play after chunk play. He had
Yep.
catches of 20 yards, 34,
Yep.
25, 42, 11, 16. He was making it happen. And some of those, were first down conversions as well, or third down conversions. So what Aiyuk did, I think, is going to be like overshadowed by what Christian McCaffrey did
Yeah.
today, and probably rightfully so. But let's not forget, Brandon Aiyuk is great, and this was a great matchup. And kind of back to what you were saying earlier, that like Brock Purdy is doing a good job of finding those matchups that he likes.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Aiyuk against anyone, I'm taking Aiyuk every single time.
Every time. Every time. And you know what? I was kind of upset about the ball. He threw the deep ball down the hash, down the middle of the field, because it was kind of in double coverage. But I know what Brock was thinking. BA is going to make a play.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant earlier by the trust, right? He's like, you know what? That's my number one receiver out there. And he has a step on a guy. I'm trusting him to make a play. And he did. And you can't overlook that. And he's been doing it all season long.
Yep.
And he's a guy who has taken his game to a whole nother level. He's clearly one of the best receivers in the league, like not just on the team, in the league. And it's great to have that guy that Brock knows that, okay, if they want to guard him one-on-one, I'm taking that matchup all day because he's cooking. And you look at the routes he was running, some of them routes, he's open 5 by 5 or 6 yards, which is wide open in the NFL.
And sometimes you see that and you're like, wow, what are they doing? They're not guarding Brandon Aiyuk. No, they are. They're trying. Like, that's trying. Brandon Aiyuk getting open. Like, that's how good he is. He can create that space for himself. And part of it is like, part of the Shanahan scheme as well. But Brandon Aiyuk is doing work out there and he's getting open. So, okay. One thing I want to talk about really quickly is it's got to be kind of scary to know that 2 weeks in a row now, the 49ers aren't even at full strength in their offense. Right. Last week, Aiyuk was out. They still put up 30 points. They looked great. This week, Juwan Jennings wasn't out there. Debo, like we said, wasn't really involved in the game plan. And they're still putting up 35 points. Kittle wasn't even that involved in this one. Like,
didn't use Kittle much at all.
Scary. It is scary hours in the NFL. If you have to guard this offense, like, how do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's a pick your poison offense. Who do you want to pick? Right? If you want to devote all your resources to stopping CMC, well, good luck with that.
And teams do.
Teams do. If you look at the Cardinals, they were putting 7-8 in the box. And he still got his yards, right?
Oh my God!
If you want to try to double team Aiyuk, okay, you got to deal with this guy. No Aiyuk last week. Who do we go to? Debo. George Kittle was a matchup nightmare against any team, right? 6'5", big, strong. He's quicker than you think. He can run routes very well. Has great hands. Who are you going to guard? It's impossible.
It's impossible. Really, in the past, the only thing that defense is really targeted and, forced him to throw the ball was Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, that was the one weakness of this offense. And now it looks like there's not really like a glaring weakness on the offense. Like, there really isn't. Maybe the offensive line, maybe. But even then, like, Brock still hangs in the pocket if he gets some pressure and he's able to deliver to his guys. What else can you ask for, right?
Exactly.
Kyle Shanahan is speaking to the media right now. I'm trying to think if there were any injuries in this game. I know Dre Greenlaw had exited, or he got hurt for one play, but he came back and he finished the game. The only other one was offensive lineman John Feliciano. He's in the concussion protocol. That is the 49ers backup center, so he exited the game. But as far as I know, I think that's the only injury that the 49ers had after this game ended. So that in itself is a win too, right? So 49ers keep winning on that end.
and we've been relatively healthy all year long.
Exactly.
You know, we lose an Aiyuk, we lose a Debo, but it's not that long, 4 or 5 week or even a
It's not the
season-ending
high ankle
injury.
sprains.
Thank God. Remember the year of the high ankle sprains? Oh my gosh. Oh, that was just last year. But
Right. Or the MCLs. Yep.
exactly. We're remaining healthy, which is great. And as we enter in this quote unquote tough part of the schedule, this gauntlet that we have coming up, it's good that we have everyone healthy so that we can meet these challenges.
Yeah. I want to share something really quickly. I guess the 49ers, James Conner and Talanoa Hufanga got into it after the game. These two were kind of like jawing at each other all game. Like, I don't know if you noticed that,
Yeah, I
Ty,
did.
but things got spicy after the game ended between these two. So
Wow.
I don't know if like there could be fines for anything that happens after a game, but
yeah,
I'm sure the NFL is watching this like, interesting.
no punches
So
thrown, just a
no
shove,
punches,
but
no, just a shove. But
very spicy.
this is what happens. Like 49ers are pissing teams off, just like the way that they're winning and kind of dominating teams right now. I mean, they won by 3 possessions again.
Yeah.
And to me, they look like the best team in the NFL right now. I know that the Philadelphia Eagles are also still undefeated, but I watched that game this morning and they just don't look.
You weren't
They're
impressed,
not
were you?
winning. They're not
No.
winning games the same way that the 49ers are. I don't think anyone is, quite honestly. So
Exactly.
49ers could hang their hat in knowing that right now they're the best team in the NFL, and probably even in the NFC. But as we mentioned, tough game coming up next week. So 49ers have health on their side going into that one probably. So hopefully, we'll spend the week talking about that matchup. But I'm feeling pretty good about it right now.
Feeling real. We're at home. We're gonna have the crowd on our side, and everything's pointing upward.
Yes.
And this is a team whose number we've had. So
exactly.
Not to toot our own horn, but things are looking up.
But beep beep.
That's all I'm gonna say. Exactly. Beep beep. Who got the keys to my Jeep?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, exactly. Shout out Weston Smith for the donation. He said no Debo impact or Kittle impact, no problem. Yeah, and that's pretty much that's as scary. It's the situation that the 49ers are winning with right now.
Exactly.
And it's ideal for this team. But Ty, I'm just happy. 49ers are 4-0. They look dominant. And I'm ready to enjoy, the rest of my Sunday, the small bit that is left. But Ty, let everyone know where they can find your content and the East Coast Red and Gold podcast.
Yeah, I do a group podcast every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's the East Coast Red and Gold podcast with my friend Jess, Rebecca, and Matt. We're on the East Coast, thus the name. And I have my personal podcast. It's the Stay Faithful podcast. You can find it at Stay Faithful VIP on the YouTube and all the socials. And that's where I sit down and just go one-on-one with people, and we kick it about life in the 49ers.
Let's go. Well, there you have it, folks. Make sure you guys tune in to all of Ty's content coming up this week because it's going to be a fun week of content.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating. Give me your thoughts. I'm always curious about it. But for now, have a good rest of your Sunday, folks, and go Niners. Peace.